Ellie, and welcome to your new friend group. So I'm watching this new show, A Man on the Inside, and this guy pops up. I know that I recognize him, but I'm not sure where from. So like any of us would, I'm searching on IMDb to find out why I know him. I scroll right past his credit in Being Human, because I've never seen that. I've never even heard of it. At least I thought. But I go through his whole IMDb, and sure, he has credits and things I've seen. But I swear, I've watched a show where he is one of the main characters, and I'm not finding it. I'm about to give up, move on, and assume he has just one of those faces, you know? Then I see this picture. Suddenly, memories are unlocking in my brain. I have seen Being Human. In fact, I think I really liked it when I watched it. So what happened? I don't remember watching it to the end, and apparently it didn't even make enough of an impression to remember I watched it at all. Today, you and I are going to go over the show Being Human and figure out how it did end, where I might have stopped watching or why, and why years later it took me hours to remember it existed at all. Did I get abducted by aliens whose sole intent was to remove this show from my consciousness? Am I a Russian sleeper agent trained to be triggered by being human, and now it's unlocking my murderous mission? Or was it just not as good as I thought at the time? Was it just so bland I forgot? I figured out how to make my microphone pink, and I have changed everything about what I'm doing with lighting to best accentuate the pink. So I'm going to take you on this journey the same way I went on the journey. I sat down and watched the first 2 episodes of Being Human US. The show starts with Aiden, a vampire, explaining that he finds death gorgeous while walking his date home.
But you know what I mean, right? That living thing, that breathing, living thing taking its last breath. It's gorgeous.
What a massive red flag. Any man who walks me home while explaining how he finds watching things die enjoyable is not coming into my home. In fact, I might have to think about moving because he knows where I live. Low-key, I'm not saying Girlie deserved to die, but she's got the survival instincts of a chair, so it was inevitable. Josh is a werewolf, and he wakes up naked in the woods after having turned. And I bet that this kid that Josh took this dress in front of got blamed for the missing dress. Because this show never mentions people looking for the streaker who's stealing clothes on a monthly basis, so this poor kid's parents probably did not believe him. Having one of the main characters you're supposed to root for brutally murder someone, then cry like a bitch about it while still naked in the first 5 minutes of your show is a choice. It's not a choice I would have made, but it is a choice. Aiden and Josh work at this hospital. Aiden our vampire and Josh our werewolf. And when they go to work, Aiden realizes that a vampire from the vampire organization is there, because there's always a vampire organization, and he tells this vampire that they aren't allowed to turn or feed on people at the hospital he works at, even though he literally murdered a woman from this hospital like 2 scenes before this. And when their teeth click out during this fight, they make this funny little noise. The ghost, Sally, has a really fun intro.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the Bobbsey twins. I am God. I am everywhere. I drive all night just to get back home.
Are you trying to scare us with Bon Jovi?
The boys decide to get this apartment together to try to be normal, but it's haunted by Sally. She died there about 6 months ago. Most people can't see Sally, but the boys can because they're supernatural. And Josh is rude and mean to Sally for literally no reason. Oh, and then the leader of the vampire organization is Lucifer from Supernatural. So the vampire organization wants Aiden to rejoin them, and he won't. Basic plot. But it doesn't make sense to me why they want him back. By the time I finish episode 2, I don't even like him. But anyway, so Josh runs into Emily, his sister, at the hospital, and she's there because her girlfriend broke her arm. Emily is at the hospital all day, for several days, because of the girlfriend's broken arm, which is insane to me. Couldn't they have at least said she needed surgery on her arm to explain that? Okay, they're gonna give you a cast, maybe some pain meds, and send you on your way. You shouldn't even have to stay 1 night, but several days? That's crazy. At one point, we cut to Aiden being out, then being home, then being back out, just walking the streets at night. Why? Not even a single reason is given as to why he would leave the house. In fact, when he does, Sally is kind of down in the dumps, so you'd think he would want to be there for her and stay at home. Speaking of Sally being down in the dumps, she has a not believable cry when talking to Aiden about how she can't leave the house and she's afraid. And this was right after Aiden had flashed back to a time he murdered a bunch of people at a wedding in front of this child, and the child doesn't look scared either. And this is no shade to the actors, because I feel like the director and writers weren't giving them a lot to work with. Like, am I supposed to like Josh and Aiden? Because right now I only like Sally. Josh is mean to Sally, and Aiden is nicer to her, but even here, when he's supposed to be trying to comfort her, he literally says nothing. So back to Josh, because Josh's sister is at the hospital all day over a broken arm, and because Aiden suggested Josh try turning into a werewolf in the hospital basement, she sees Josh and follows him to the basement, where she ignores what he's saying to her and traps herself in the room with him. Aiden had broken off the door handle in the basement so the werewolf couldn't escape and told Josh he'd let him out, so I thought he would fail to be there for Josh at some point, but I didn't expect it to happen literally immediately. Josh calls Aiden, and Aiden is busy at some kind of vampire brothel with the same vampire organization that he's spent the entire episode saying he wants no part in. Like, nothing even really happened, and Aiden is already giving up and off the wagon. He literally folded under no pressure. Also, all the vampires in this show are cucks. Episode 1 and 2 are a two-parter, and I like the beginning of episode 2 a lot more. We get to see how they became what they are. Aiden is fighting in the Revolutionary War when the vampires turn him. Josh is walking in the woods and gets attacked by the werewolf. Then we see the first time he turned. And you're telling me nobody followed the stumbling, unwell-looking man outside of the diner? And Sally fell down the stairs. Her fiancé said she went to use the bathroom when it was dark and she must have turned the wrong way and fell down the stairs. But then he said he went to check on her because it had been a while and found her? You're telling me he didn't hear a whole human being fall down the stairs right outside of his bedroom door? No, he's guilty. Which, I'm a little biased because the second I saw his face, his storyline came flooding back to me. I think this storyline must be why I watched the show, because it's the only interesting thing going on and the only thing I remember. So its conclusion might be why I stopped watching, but I don't remember what the conclusion was. We see that the girl that Aiden murdered was turned into a vampire by the organization, which is confusing to me. Aiden ripped half her throat out, cried, called the cleanup crew of vampires, and they loaded her into a box in front of him. So how on earth did they feed her vampire blood before she died so she could become a vampire? Like, I already don't believe she hadn't bled out by the time the cleanup crew arrived, but then they managed to sneak her some blood without Aiden seeing. Oh, by the way, drinking blood is like doing drugs, because this is Twilight era vampires, baby. It's all about the sex appeal. Aiden did end up coming through for Josh after he was done with his weird little hookup, I guess, if you'd call it that, and got his sister out just in time. When she tries to ask Aiden about it, he's like, I don't know, talk to your brother. But, no? Dude, Josh called Aiden and told him if he didn't come get Emily, Josh was gonna murder her. She doesn't know he's a werewolf and can't help it. Again, survival instincts of a chair. I don't care if you're my estranged brother. If I make it out alive, I'm never seeing you again. Also, werewolves must wear flannels for proper dramatic button popping. Josh doesn't seem to be being as rude to Sally this episode, which is good, because she's still the only one I like. Sally's fiancé comes over. He doesn't know that she's a ghost, he can't see her, and it's been a while since she's seen him. The boys make Sally wait upstairs even though the fiancé cannot see her, and he's coming over because she wanted to see him. So that's just dumb and mean of the boys. At this point, Aiden is hiding a lot from Josh. And like, are you guys even friends? And why? There is no chemistry between the actors, and the way they act toward each other doesn't seem like good friends unless it's when they are actually saving each other. Later, Sally's fiancé just shows up unannounced and lets himself in, which is not reasonable of a landlord to do, in my opinion. He's supposed to fix the plumbing, but he doesn't even know anything about plumbing, so he does nothing. He's there for 5 minutes and could have given them a quick ring before, like, hey, are you home? Can I swing by to look at the sink again, and do nothing? By the time I'm nearing the end of episode 2, I'm already getting burnt out on the majority of this show. It seems like all they do is talk about the same things over and over again. Being a werewolf is hard and inconvenient. The vampires want Aiden back and he won't come back, but he also won't stop doing things that involve the vampire organization, like calling their cleanup crew or participating in drug-induced bloody sex scenes in front of the leader of the organization. Because again, all the vampires in this show are cucks. So Aiden decides to go out with the girl that clearly has a crush on him. And why? Like, are you hungry already? You drank from 2 people last episode, and now you just can't stop yourself? He's supposed to be trying to be a good guy, and I am not rooting for him. He's doing an awful job. He basically calls Josh and says, hey, if you don't come to the bar right now, I'm going to take this girl home, sleep with her, and murder her. Okay, buddy. Or you could not. But while he's at the bar with this girl, in walks the girl he murdered, and she sits right down at the table. But she actually had a little run-in with Josh a little earlier, where Josh finds out for the first time that Aiden murdered this girl. Because Josh and Aiden are not friends. Aiden tells Josh nothing. When she sits down, she's trying to scare off Aiden's date, and he's letting her be so close to him and touch him. I just don't understand why. Like, she could make a scene or attack somebody, but could Aiden not stop her? He's pathetic. Of course, he leaves his date alone, and she's murdered in the street by the vampire, which is actually a really upsetting scene. Josh is there, and he's freaking out, and I nearly felt something for somebody besides Sally. Josh tells Aiden to save her, but he chooses to save her by not turning her into a vampire. Meanwhile, the 2 people who work at a hospital are not putting pressure on the wound at all. So, could have tried to save her in an actual way. At the end of the episode, Aiden tells Josh about how deep the vampire organization goes, and they have some sad boy moments, then repeat the same conversations we've heard all episode, and episode 2 comes to an end. I really like the idea, but not the execution of this show. A werewolf, a ghost, and a vampire living as roommates would make a fun sitcom with some drama, but this was so much drama that at times it was unintentionally funny. At this point, I became curious about the UK version of Being Human. Was it just as bad? It has to be good, right? Why else would the US want to make one? The first 2 episodes of Being Human UK and Being Human US are practically incomparable. Being Human UK's first 10 minutes cover everything episode 1 did in Being Human US. Literally the first 10 minutes. I'm going to start referring to them as US and UK because I don't want to keep saying the whole thing. US had me feeling like the characters weren't doing anything, weren't very good people, and didn't even like each other. UK was way faster, and the actors actually had chemistry with each other. I believed the vampire and werewolf were friends. I could tell the vampire was trying to be better, and instead of coming off as pathetic, he was kind of a badass. The US version also kept trying to tell me that the vampire was more attractive than the werewolf, and that the werewolf was just really awkward. But the awkward came off as forced, and I just didn't see it about the attractive. I honestly thought the werewolf was the hotter one. But when I watch UK, this guy is naturally awkward. And he's not ugly, but I don't find him more attractive than the vampire at all. I agree with UK about which one of these men would pull. It felt like the UK version had less exposition, and yet everything made way more sense. The vampire organization wasn't just bad to be bad, and didn't want the vampire back for no reason. The vampire in this version is actually tough and intimidating. I could see why they want him on their team. The vampire organization wants to give everyone the choice to be a vampire. They don't want to hide anymore, they want to rule the world, and that makes sense. And we don't really find out the motivation yet for the other vampire organization in the US version, but nothing they did made sense to me. And the brothels? I think that the US version catches up, and I'm certain I got further into it when I watched it before, but I can also see now why I didn't remember it and why I stopped watching. It was repetitive and dragged on. I'm never a fan also of shows that don't let their characters ever be happy anyway. I'm looking at you, the last seasons of Buffy. I know the struggle is the story, but sometimes I just want to see them be happy, hang out as friends, have a laugh after they've struggled a bunch, you need some relief. The UK version also was intentionally funny and more lighthearted than the US, and therefore when it was sad, it was actually really sad, and I ended up crying in the first couple episodes. So I've answered the questions I came into this project with, and if I got further before in the show and gave up, then I don't think it's worth rewatching again. But like I said, I do like the premise, and I will be watching Being Human UK, possibly to the end, but I saw that the characters might swap out. I don't know if I'll watch it past that. Thank you for figuring out if Being Human US was worth another watch with me, and like and subscribe to join your new friend group.